Welcome. You're listening to The Weather Lounge, a podcast by WeatherWorks. Get ready to explore the world of weather and connect with engaging guests, bringing you fun and thought-provoking stories of just how weather shapes our lives, sometimes in ways you've never imagined. So, join us as we unravel the mysteries of the atmosphere. Today's episode starts right now.
Hi there, and thanks for joining us back here in the Weather Lounge. I'm your host, meteorologist Brad Miller, and joining me for today's podcast is fellow WeatherWorks meteorologist Jen Diorio. What's going on there, Jen?
Oh, not much, Brad. How are you?
Not too bad. You know, we're rolling into September here. Hard to believe.
Yeah, I blinked and August was over, and here we are, and it's got that little crispness to the air, which I am loving. Finally breaking from that oppressive humidity, which is great. So,
yeah, I mean, it just seems like yesterday we did that summertime podcast, just getting ready for beach and weather outside, concerts, and now
Yes, the summer concert series and all the outdoor plans that we had. Yeah.
And here, Kyle, our other WeatherWorks long range forecast just released their first outlook for winter with Kevin Winters and team. Hard to believe.
It really is.
So, we're into, quote, meteorological fall, which begins September the 1st. It's always up for discussion. A lot of folks like, no, fall doesn't start till September 22nd. But, we as meteorologists know that they do have meteorological fall. Meteorological winter begins December 1st. So, while it may not be the case over there in Long Island where you are, the leaves are starting. You like that, Long Island?
I liked it. It was a little much, but I liked it.
But, the leaves are starting to change up my way here in northeastern PA. And that brings us to our guest today. His name is Kyle Cotner, and he owns and runs the website called the Foliage Report. And he's here to talk to us about the changing leaves, Jen, and everything we ever wanted to know about fall foliage.
Yay.
So Kyle, thanks for joining us here in the Weather Lounge. Welcome.
Brad, Jen, great to be here. Thank you for having me on today.
Of course, happy to have you.
So tell us about yourself, Kyle. Tell us how the Foliage Report began, and I'm sure you guys are getting ready and excited for the next couple of months, huh?
We are well into it, to be honest with you, Brad. But to take a step back and talk about how the Foliage Report started. So we have to go back to 2007. So originally, I'm from the great state of Florida. And what the heck do I know about fall foliage? So in 2007, I moved up to Washington, D.C., where I was actually working in the White House for President George W. Bush.
Wow.
And so when I started there, my colleagues said, Kyle, is this your first real fall? And I said, well, yes, technically it is. We do have some fall in Florida, of course. The cypress trees will change. But I'm actually a fall foliage expert, which I was not. I was totally trolling my colleagues. Totally, and I told him I put out a weekly a weekly fall foliage report, which I did not at the time. So I kept the bit going. I told my colleagues I did it. They knew I was probably not serious, but I just kept the bit going. And then so when that first week of fall started, I thought to myself, wow, I really need to put out a report. So what I did was I just aggregated any information I could find on the internet, and I put out a newsletter, sent it to about 10 colleagues. Well, I kept doing that every week. 10 colleagues turned into many more colleagues. And then after I kept doing it every week in the fall, people expected it. And then so basically what I did was like I mentioned, I pulled in any information I could find on the web, put it in my own newsletter, and I'd use many resources, of course. But eventually those resources kind of dried out a bit. So I had to really use my own way of going about finding where the leaves are changing. I pull in many resources from state data that they'll publish. I'll also use aerial footage as well. And then I have some folks across the country who will report back to me. So what turned into kind of a troll job ended up being becoming an actual expert over the, 17 years it is. So yes.
That's awesome.
Well, that's amazing, Kyle. I mean, the contacts I guess you must have across the United States, and I guess even into Canada. Is that true?
Correct. Yes. I'm not tracking exactly fall color in Canada, but I do have some contacts up there. If I look at the analytics of who visits my sites, USA is obviously number one, and Canada's number two.
And now the foliage. I mean, I've been looking at your website without knowing you for a long time, and we've gone through it and we've used it just as like information if we want to pass it along to somebody even. Now the Foliage Network, that was the old Foliage Report.
That's actually not true. So the Foliage Network was a separate entity,
I
separate
got you.
tracking website. That it was my first resource. I'm glad you brought this up. It's my first resource for my Foliage Report. And obviously, I would put out a disclaimer. This is information gathered from the Foliage Network and such. And so when I tried to reach out to the Foliage Network, because in the early days, I wanted to work with the Foliage Network. So I reached out to them. I never heard anything back. I offered to be a spotter for the Washington, D.C. region. And I believe I sent a few emails to them, but I never heard anything back. So that kind of also drove me, you know what? It's time to create my own thing.
And it's so cool that, like, I know Brad and I are very familiar with snow spotters and how, people measure snow in the winter, and, public and private sources use that to either create snowfall reports or climatology or whatnot. And now to hear you just say foliage spotters is so cool to me.
The peepers. Yes, they're my
Peeper.
peepers. Exactly.
Well,
Yes.
and you read about that, you see like the traffic jams, like in New England, especially like in October. I can't believe. I mean, I think I saw something last year that people were 2 hours backed up just to get into like the White Mountains up there, and like there's only so many roads up that way, and apparently they have massive traffic jams up there in the fall.
Oh, wow.
It's also a huge economic driver as well. Appalachian State University put out some data a few years ago, and they mentioned how over $30 billion go to local economies from leaf peepers.
I was gonna say they probably get nice foliage out there too in the Blue Mountains and western North Carolina.
This spans across obviously many states from New England through the Midwest down to the Carolinas, and then out west to Colorado and those golden aspens out there.
And also you've been on, I think I read somewhere you have other outlets that you've been on, even TV and things like that.
I have. I've been on the Weather Channel, Fox Weather, Fox Business. That's how I knew about the economic impact on Fox Business, and you may see me on a few other places in the next few weeks, especially October. The Foliage Report is in high demand in October.
Oh yeah, it was definitely good to find you then.
So when Jen's turned on her TV randomly, well, hey, you may see me there.
There you go.
So let's go back to high school here a little bit now, Kyle. And of course, the elephant in the room, kind of. What exactly causes leaves to change? I mean, what I know there's chlorophyll involved and the sunlight, but I mean, is it all just that?
Well, that's a large part of it. And so when you mention chlorophyll, I may quote Billy Madison, more like chlorophyll.
Chlorophyll. I love that movie.
Exactly. Yeah,
More like chlorophyll.
So yeah, let's go back. Let's go back to school here. So you mentioned photosynthesis. So that is obviously how trees eat, and you mentioned it way back in school, the word photosynthesis, but you may not exactly recall what that means. So in short, it's how trees feed themselves using a pigment called chlorophyll, which we just joked about, that is found in the leaves. So what happens is the trees absorb the sunlight and convert that into sugar. And then this is used as energy, kind of like calories as we consume food, to nourish the trees and help them grow. So basically, next time you see in the summer, so we're obviously not in the summer now, but next time in the summer you see a tree basking in the sunlight, just know that, hey, this is enjoying one heck of a buffet. And then so we now move to chlorophyll, which makes the leaves green. The green color that's typically associated with leaves comes from, like I mentioned, chlorophyll. It's the same stuff which we just talked about, which is in photosynthesis. But during the spring and summer months, when the summer is shining brightly, those trees are eating, chlorophyll is in high demand. So the trees crank out the chlorophyll in large quantities, and that overpowers the other pigments, which could be either red, orange, yellow, or purple. It overpowers those pigments and makes the leaves green. Now, when the sunlight decreases, that tree's not getting as much chlorophyll. Chlorophyll starts to break down, and then you start to see the actual colors of the leaves. Now, when you look at colors such as orange and yellow, those are natural colors of the leaves. But when you go into more of the purples or reds, those comes from the breakdown of the sugars within the chlorophyll. And it's very tangible as well. If you just go outside right now, you grab a leaf off your tree, because I'm sure it may be still green, except Brad, where you are in Pennsylvania, you're seeing a little
No,
change.
it's still mostly green up here. It's just starting to.
If you find a leaf that's changing colors, you grab that off the tree, you grab a green leaf, and just it's very tangible. If you just break it apart, you can actually feel, oh, this is obviously, there's chlorophyll, and there's a chemical in this that's still present. But obviously, as it loses sunlight, the chlorophyll leaves, and it's left with that beautiful fall color.
So the green is actually not the natural color of the leaf. It's the orange and the yellow is.
Correct. But there are some trees that are green throughout the year.
Okay.
That's just because they may have like a wax coating on them, which causes to keep chlorophyll in, and it doesn't leave at all. So when you think of like evergreens,
Right. Oh, right.
needles are just basically wrapped up leaves covered in a coat of wax, protecting the chlorophyll.
Wow. So interesting, because I've always thought for, the last 26 years of my life that the green color was what was natural and the orange and the yellow was the change.
Yeah, I did too.
So, but it's actually the green is overpowering. Very interesting.
Absolutely. And if you want to find the best color, if you're thinking to yourself, what's a recipe for the best fall color? For this chlorophyll to break down, you definitely want warmer days, so in the 70s, so not too hot, not too cold. And then you definitely want during the nighttime the temperatures to go down into maybe the 40s, upper 30s. You don't want to get too cold, a hard freeze, because that will cause the leaves to just dry up quickly and fall off.
So Kyle, the question that I have is in regards to, kind of the different tree types and, deciduous trees and kind of the difference between how trees either don't change color at all, kind of like you were saying, those evergreens that are, heavily coated in wax and can protect that chlorophyll, to, our typical kind of, oak or maple that do change color, or even palm trees, like, kind of if you can talk to us a little bit about the difference between all of those.
Absolutely. So you're right. Some trees do not turn color. This can be a result of many things. They can be deciduous trees, which mean, like you said, they do not change color. But also there's hardiness zones. So if you're trying to grow a plant or a tree, there's a thing called hardiness zone. And the higher you go in the hardiness zone is the tougher for certain type of plants to grow. Now, the plants that do grow in those high hardiness zones are the ones that do not change colors. These are in very subtropical places. They have a lot of sunlight throughout the year, so the chlorophyll does not break down. So if you're thinking about palm trees, yes, some palm trees do change, but it's a very not a real appealing brown color, and they kind of just fall off. But that's mostly because of maybe a distressed palm tree. But unless you are, say, if you're in a lower hardiness zone, your evergreen tree, like we mentioned, the wax will protect the chlorophyll. But if you're not in that area and you do not have the wax and you're in a higher hardness zone, it's most likely you're going to stay green throughout the year.
Interesting.
I lived down in South Carolina. I lived in Charleston for about 17 years. When I was
Chucktown. Yep,
Chucktown, and I'm originally from the Northeast. I grew up in New Jersey, but I'll tell you, I didn't miss spring up here. I really didn't miss summer because it's almost always summer down there, and I really didn't miss winter, that's for sure. But the only season I missed when I moved down there was fall, because different up here in the Northeast. It's that time of year, like you said, you get those crisp mornings, like Jen and I were talking about. You get the warm days still in the 70s, and down there, there's like it's either summer or then you go into like a fake fall where you get a couple of cooler days, but it's not the same. It turns like a murky season December through like January and February. But that's the one season I got to say I did miss when I was up down there for a long time.
And like I mentioned, I'm from Florida originally, so when I moved up to DC,
Yeah, even more
I was just so amazed by. I always loved the autumn season.
Yeah.
It's when football starts. It's just the greatest time of the year, and I would visit northern places in the fall to see fall foliage, but when I actually moved to the DC area and I was able to travel out to the Shenandoahs, go to Western Maryland, that's when I really
whole different world, yeah.
Totally different world. Blew my mind, and I guess it's why I'm here today on this podcast.
So, other things that we always discuss, and again, there's always those rumors that go around. Oh, it was a dry summer, so the foliage is going to be lousy. It was a wet summer, it's going to be kind of just dampened because of that. But I mean, how much truth is there between a dry and a wet summer or a hot and a cooler summer? I mean, does it really affect the foliage that much?
So the wet and dry summer impacts more than the hot or cool summer, I would say. The wets, so I'll just break it down this way. So if you have a very dry summer, that means the soil is going to be dry. The tree needs some moisture. It needs to pull in some moisture somehow. So what it'll do is it'll pull any moisture from those leaves to the tree. So what this causes is you'll still see wonderful color if it's drought conditions, but it'll be very quick. The leaves will turn a bright color and then completely fall off the tree very quickly because it'll just die quickly.
Like now, a short foliage season almost.
Exactly. So we saw this exactly in the upper Midwest back in 2023. So when you have places like Minnesota, Wisconsin, they had terrible drought conditions there last summer, or rather the summer of 2023. This caused a very short season for them, but it was still vibrant color. It just was very short. Now, if we transition to more your area, closer to New England, very wet summer last year. Obviously, they went into tropical systems through, I believe it was September of last year. This caused a lot of moisture for the soil, for the trees. And what happens when that happens, when a lot of moisture happens, a lot of rainfall happens, the trees will grow like a fungus. And the leaves will not be as vibrant. They'll be dull. And that's what we saw last year. New England had a really poor season last year. But coming up for 2024, I'm pretty excited for you folks up there.
Last summer was when Vermont got hit by all those flooding events, wasn't it?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it really has nothing, drought or wet or dry really has nothing to do with the vibrance of the colors. It just has to do with the longevity of the color and how quickly those leaves fall off.
Regarding drought, absolutely,
Yes.
But too much rainfall, like I said, that's just going to cause these leaves to be really dull because the tree could have some type of fungus on it, and that's obviously not good for fellow leaf peepers like us.
Yeah, which is interesting because I've heard false information. Like, I feel like I've always heard, drought is going to be more dull, wetter is going to be more vibrant.
Yep. No. There's a lot of obviously, if you just Google it, you'll find different type of information.
Yeah.
But I can tell you over the 17 years I've been doing it, and I've met with dendrologists, those are people that study trees, and they'll back that information up there.
Cool. That's why that's why it's always good to have an expert on the subject matter. I love it.
Except when you get those Halloween snow events and there's still leaves on the trees, and it's ugly. I don't like that.
So snowleage, we call that snowleage. When there's fall foliage on the trees.
I have seen that before, snowleage.
Snowleage, exactly. And that could be very appealing to look at, I believe, sometimes. But, for you folks in the Northeast, just think to yourself like, oh, no, it's already snowing now. I mean, we have to go through many, many months of this.
Yeah. Although sometimes I've also seen years where you think, oh, this is gonna be a crazy snow year, and you get that early snowfall, then it craps out for the rest of the season. It turns out like maybe your October snowfall was the biggest one.
Exactly, yeah. I've seen that as well. I remember it snowed a few days before Halloween in 2009 in DC, and I expected it to be a pretty big year. And actually, it was a pretty big year that year. But I've seen early snowfalls, lame year, and vice versa.
I think the year was it, Jen. I wasn't here. I was still down south. Was it the year that Sandy hit? Was that the year it snowed early, or was that Irene?
No, it was, well, I remember Sandy. I don't know about the year before, but
Yeah, I think
Sandy was like Sandy happened, and then a couple of days later, it snowed. And yeah, the
it was
combination.
like a decent storm too, right?
Yeah, I mean,
At least
down on
elevation.
yeah, down here on Long Island, it was like not a lot, but like the matter of I wasn't more than an inch or two, I would say, at least by me. But it prolonged school, not having school for me. I was in ninth grade, so it just
Oh, that's right. You probably had power outages still from Sandy.
yeah, and then add that on, and then it was more coastal flooding and more power outages, and any of the trees that weren't knocked down. Now they had heavy snow, even though it wasn't that much snow on it, it was just a mess. But
Brad, Jen's making us feel old here, by the way.
I know.
That was in 2012, I believe Sandy was.
yes, I was in ninth grade at the time.
I was I was doing TV then, and I remember that storm at the time was forecast to get pretty close to the southeast coast. I mean, it was basically almost all hands on deck for Charleston, points southward, because it just didn't look like it was going to turn in time. But then some of the new forecast models started coming out. We're like, oh, wow, this thing's actually missed to the east and go north. And we're thinking, all right, well, maybe we're going to be in the clear. And you got a Cat 3 hurricane just 150, 200 miles east of you. You're still, watching that thing like a hawk. And then once it gets past your latitude, and then you start seeing the European model come in, it's like, this thing's going to hit New York? No way. It was a rarity to see something like that on that kind of a track. So it's like my old chief meteorologist. So I know we're going off on a tangent here. He said a hurricane can make or break a TV station for you real fast if you're not, careful with it. But
You know what I've noticed, Brad,
what's
is
that?
how a lot of these storm chasers out there during the fall they become peepers. Throughout the spring and summer
Well,
they're trying to chase tornadoes,
yeah,
and then the fall they want to go peep leaves. So
yeah.
Got to do something, right?
Just sounds dirty
And
sometimes
then
when you say it like that. A leaf peeper. It sounds like somebody's in the corner. Ooh, I see you.
yeah, they're true fall sickos. We call it fall foliage sickos. Yep,
that's funny.
foliage sickos. Yep.
Yeah. So we were talking about the color of leaves earlier, Kyle. I guess you kind of covered it though, with all leaves that already are the color of them. I mean, what determines the actual color of the leaf itself? I mean, I know it's covered up by the chlorophyll and the green, but is there a certain, like, maples are always red? I guess that's their true color.
Yeah, well, it depends. There's sugar maples.
I
To
guess
red
there's different
maples.
maples, yeah.
Exactly. So red maples will be red. Cool fact: the Japanese red maples are some of them that stay red all throughout the year. But yeah, sugar maples will turn reddish, orange, most likely. That's the more dominant color, and then some slight tints of yellow as well. But this is also due to we're going to go back to school here, if that's okay, Brad. So when you see a tree, the red and purple colors are due to anthocyanins. So that's a chemical. Exactly, it's a chemical present in the tree. Now, in the leaf rather. Now, yellow and orange colors are due to, get ready for this, carotenoids and flavonoids. Those are two terms you probably. Those are actually
I've heard
three terms.
flavonoids.
There you go. flavonoids.
That's like
Jen's
something
on
you're
team
supposed to drink
flavonoids.
or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's too early in the morning for that, Brad. No, exactly. No. So, like I said, yellow and oranges are always present. I mentioned earlier. They're just hidden by the chlorophyll. But red and purples are broken down due to the sugars. So, like a sugar maple, you'll see some reds in there. You'll see some oranges. But yeah, so in addition to the yellows and oranges, it's common to see leaves with tints of red and purples in the fall.
I don't know if I've ever seen a purple leaf, like with the changing of the colors.
You will this fall.
Yeah.
I just mentioned it. Yes, exactly. Same thing. It's probably the most obscure color for the sickos of fall foliage.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are some purple leaves out there. It's just very obviously deep deep red there. That looks very purplish.
Cool.
So and then the same trees are the same color every year. Then is that right?
Yes. So if you think about like aspen trees out west, they turn gold every year.
They turn gold. Yeah, they're
Red
always
maples
pretty. Yeah.
turn red. Now there's going to be different tints of this as well, going back to if they're having way too much rain or if there's not enough rain at all. So
That's awesome. I mean, I love the red. The red colors are personally my favorite, but
Brad, what's your favorite fall color? Sorry, Jen, to cut you off there.
no, you're good.
I'm the same thing. I'm probably like the yellows and the golds. I mean, I think just the entire mixture of everything just makes it look so
Yeah,
cool.
the mixtures are cool. I really do like the vibrant red.
Yeah, if you look
though.
at a photo, sometimes somebody like these peepers take it almost looks like a painting. It's like there's no way that's real.
I know.
It's amazing.
It's funny. There's actually some science behind that. Some psychologists actually think that because we're hardwired to appreciate visual contrasts in our brain, so when we see a picture or we're there going checking out the fall foliage, when we see the reds, the orange, the yellows, some purple as well, Jen. When we see that, it's very appealing to our minds, basically.
So, Kyle, do leaves change the exact same way each year? So, like, do certain types of maple always turn, red in the fall, or does X tree always turn, orange or yellow, or does it vary on the color?
It leans more towards the side of always.
Okay.
Trees like sugar maples will turn like reddish orange, most likely. Red maples, of course. Aspens like being yellow. And if you've ever been out in Colorado in the fall or even out west in the fall, you'll hear those golden aspens. The wind will go through the leaves and it makes a fantastic sound.
Oh, really?
Absolutely, yes. YouTube it. It's
Well, I will be in Colorado in 3 weekends, so
perfect timing. Perfect
Yes,
timing.
I will hopefully see it.
I expect a report back, Jen.
All right, I will let you know.
Perfect.
Yeah, Jen, that'll be good. You send them not only to us, we'll send them over to Kyle and
Yeah, I'll take some pictures for sure.
when you post stuff on X and Facebook and things like that, Kyle. I mean, does that come from just you or that from all your? I guess not from you because you're in Dallas for the most part. I guess that's all from folks just sending stuff to you.
Absolutely, yes. So I still put out a newsletter which goes out every week. And,
Right, I did notice that just on the transformation from region to region, I guess.
So I have folks sending me in pictures constantly. They're texting them to me if they know me well. They'll email them to me. They'll find me on X and they'll send me pictures via that way. They'll send emails to the Foliage Report's official email address. So I get all that, and then what I like to do is obviously highlight the best pictures that I can. I can't highlight everyone's photos that they send in. But yeah, I try to find the best ones, post them out there, and if I do see some, so we actually do have some decent fall color in North Texas here. In some years we do, and this normally happens in early November, going into mid-November. And so yes, I'm able to highlight some areas around North Texas and into Oklahoma. But overall, you don't beat the pictures from your area, Brad and Jen. Tell you that.
Yeah, it does get pretty cool up this way. Yeah, the golf course I usually play at, we're actually higher up in elevation than where I am. It's really at the top of the Poconos, and some of the foliage. I'll actually send them over to you this year. It'll be kind of neat as we get into October because they get some really cool stuff, especially when you're like up on the top of the mountain looking down a little bit. It's pretty cool.
I would love to highlight that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, I'll definitely share it with you for sure.
Share your scratch score as well with that. So I can...
Yeah. I used to be better. I'm not as good at golf
there
as
you
I
go.
used to be.
There you go.
I kind of peaked in golf, probably 10, 15 years ago. I don't play as much now. Kids will do that. But anyway.
This is Brad lowering his expectations right
Yeah,
here.
I know. So, Kyle, give us some fun facts and some oddities about foliage, like things that people may not even know, and me or Jen may not know.
So, out of the 50 states, and I'll include DC as well, so 51 states and districts of the United States, there's only one state that does not have fall color. Jen.
Florida?
you want to guess?
Wow, way to guess already, Brad. No,
Hawaii?
I was,
Hawaii.
Brad, I was gonna guess Hawaii.
Brad, and Jen, you got it. I'm going to give the point to Jen here.
Thank
So
you.
yes, Hawaii is the only state that does not really have any fall color. This has to do, if we go back to the hardiness zone, it's a very high hardiness zone. I've been searching for years and years to find anything in Hawaii, and I've spoken to other experts out there, and they have confirmed there's nothing in Hawaii that truly changes. If you do see some change, it's just a distressed bush potentially.
It's interesting too, like the tops of, some of the tops of those volcanoes or, dormant ones, they
snows.
Yeah, they get to pretty high up elevation,
but there's probably nothing growing there. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Just distressed bushes.
Sunlight as well is very high there. But so another cool fact is, so there's fall colors from the north slope of Alaska, and that starts to change in middle August. The tundra there starts to change, goes all the way down throughout Canada, and in the lower 48 states to Florida, to the central Florida, the swamps, which the cypress trees turn like an auburn color. So I always find that a really cool fact. And another thing, scientists still don't understand how humidity impacts fall color. We just don't know. They just don't know, rather. I don't want to consider myself a scientist here, but they just do not know. So they're constantly trying to figure out, hey, does humidity have any impact on fall color? Obviously, that's moisture in the air. So how much does that truly impact the leaves there? So that's, I guess, some cool little fun facts for you. I threw out some other great tidbits for you earlier.
Yeah, no, it's awesome.
I just think of the was that the Farmer's Almanac. They always have some good fall stuff in there before their outrageously horrible weather forecasts. but they do have some good stuff about fall usually in there, and stuff about colors, and there's always some good stuff to read.
It's a novelty. It's a novelty.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love looking at it.
Yeah, I do too. Even though
exactly. So, and other fall foliage sickos like us, Brad, we like looking at it as well. But the issue, though, with that is, like you mentioned, it's not very accurate. And there's other platforms out there as well. I'm not here to throw anyone under the bus, but if you look at like the Smoky Mountain Report, they put out a yearly report every single year. It's all prediction, it's forecast, and that's almost never accurate.
Okay.
It's never, and a lot of publications love to use it. And forecasting is very difficult, fall color. But I wish there was a bit of a disclaimer there on there, because I get sent every fall, I get the same kind of articles sent to me with links to the Smoky Mountain Report. And I just, it's kind of frustrating because I worry that these folks who want to go check out the fall colors are going to really rely on that resource. And when they do go out there, it could be still green or, hey, past peak. So it's more of a real-time tracking kind of deal.
Yeah, I mean, you never thought about, how, deep you can get into like the fall foliage and how many, like you said, that there's so many people out there that just love to go and peep, and just it seems like it gets more popular now every year. I don't know, maybe social media is the reason for that or anything, but it just seems like, you see more and more of it every year.
Brad, 100% social media is behind it.
That's great.
You can definitely correlate the rise of platforms like Instagram with the overall interest in fall color. Because when I started the Foliage Report, when I started putting out my newsletter, Instagram wasn't really around. It wasn't around at all. And then so maybe in the early 2010s is when interest really ramped up. And that's mostly with the social media platforms like Instagram really growing in popularity. People love posting photos, but with that, you have to watch out for filters. So I actually use Instagram as a resource of mine. I'll look for locations and I'll see what recently people have posted on there. I'll use that as a resource, but you obviously have to make sure that there's not any filters thrown on there.
Right.
As great as social media is for certain things, now on our end, the weather forecasting side, we fight this sometimes. And of course, we love social media too. We use it every day, but there's so much out there now with people putting pictures of models, and clients will say, oh, wow, I just saw on X that some guy just posted a 24-inch snowfall for Boston. I mean, are we getting that much? And it's something that we have to fight. It's like, because people like to show the worst case scenarios, of course,
Yep.
and then we fight that kind of side of things when it comes to forecasting. It sometimes gets frustrating,
Yes.
but I guess with the Leaf, you guys, you need the social media.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, and I've definitely seen that as well. The clickbait out there about, hey, the snow forecast.
The armchair meteorologists, as we call them.
Exactly. They they are.
Right, they don't have to answer to anyone. We get the questions, of course, and am I getting 2 feet of snow? And like, no, 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 that's the worst case that could possibly. I don't understand why that's. Of course, TV gets involved with it too. Then sometimes, we got forecasts that are saying 2 feet of snow, and we have to calm everyone down. No, no, no. All right, so Kyle, I think we've covered a lot of things here, and great information. I almost want to ask you right now, do you want to come back on next year for fall foliage talk?
I would be honored to, Brad. I'd be honored to. I'd love to talk to you and Jen again.
Yes.
I think Jen, I think that'd be a good idea. We'll have Kyle back on around the same time, September, as we get ready for 2025 foliage.
That'd be great.
Yeah, so
I'd give my maybe not accurate forecast because, like I mentioned
Yeah.
earlier, nothing's completely accurate. But I'll give you my thoughts.
yeah, maybe we'll have you on a little bit earlier, and you can give us a good update on what you think's going to happen everywhere. But before we get to all your website stuff and where we can find you, I saw a hat behind you, and I've seen this on X before. You posted it a couple of weeks ago, I think. And of course, we're not doing this one video podcast, but you have a hat behind you that says Leaf Daddy.
I do. It is
Tell us
called
about
Leaf Daddy.
It's
And
awesome.
so, thank you. I created this hat because last year, I bought these pajamas, which are super comfortable, by the way, and they have it's called like Autumn Cabin or whatever it is. I'm not here to promote this company. I won't say their name, but they have this Autumn Cabin pajamas, and my wife said, "Oh, you look like Leaf Daddy." I told her, you know what? As ridiculous as that sounds, I'm going to run with that title. So I've been called Leaf Daddy.
I'm putting that on a hat.
I'm putting on a hat and I'm wearing it around, and people constantly ask me, what's Leaf Daddy? And I tell them, well, I'm actually the founder and owner of the Foliage Report, where we track fall color from Alaska all the way down to Florida. I go in the whole, my whole speak there. But yeah, I am Leaf Daddy. The Pontiff of Peepers, I've been called as well.
Nice.
The Godfather of Gourds, I've been called that as well. So just like it's
now you need a rap song to go along with all that.
I know, really.
Well, if people look at me, they'll obviously know this guy could not rap.
About fall foliage, just a good old.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll work on that after this, Brad.
Yeah. That'd be kind of neat. I don't think everyone's ever done a song about. I don't know. Maybe is there any songs out there about fall foliage?
There's a bunch of them.
I'm
actually.
sure there are.
You know what? I'm going to put out. I'm going to announce it right now on this podcast. I'm going to put out a top listing of fall foliage songs.
Nice.
I'll put them out. I'll put it out. I'll link it out probably in the next month or so.
We did a podcast about weather and songs and like all the different weather mentions and songs and stuff like that. That'd be kind of a neat thing to.
Oh, I mean, like you have James Taylor has a whole bunch of songs about fall color. Neil Young, Harvest, it's a very fall foliage type song. Sinatra sang about autumn in New York. Yeah, we can go on and on.
Taylor Swift has. I'm a big Swiftie. This is on the weather and music. I talked about Taylor Swift a lot, but her song "All Too Well" is about autumn colors and fall and leaves and. Yeah, I mean that's not what the whole song's about. That's a sub portion of it.
I was about to ask, did a tree break up with her? Like, what happened there? What is?
No. It is about true, the normal what you would expect a Taylor Swift song to be about, but a sub theme is autumn and leaves and.
So you're saying "Shake It Off" was not about a tree shaking off its leaves?
Unfortunately, not.
Okay.
No,
okay.
But that's a good idea for a remake.
I think it's gonna be Leaf Daddy's version. It's gonna be
yeah,
exactly.
Yes.
I still love that Leaf Daddy. That's awesome. Yeah, you gotta I think reference that a little bit more on social media. Get the hat out there and be like, yo, check out Leaf Daddy. Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's just plain. It's just Leaf Daddy. I didn't
yeah.
make it too bold, but it is.
You can probably make a winter hat out of it. I mean, do whatever you want.
Right.
You gotta
Texas here, a cowboy hat maybe on it. You never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, Kyle, I mean, this is you got anything else for Kyle, Jen? I mean, this is awesome.
I don't think so. I mean, I think, Kyle, just where can we find, you and the things that you put out?
Yeah, how do we follow you even more so? I know you're on X, yeah.
Follow me. You can find me at thefoliagereport.com.
Okay.
You can find me on Twitter X at Foliage Report. So at Foliage Report on Twitter X, and on Instagram at Foliage Report as well on there. We just recently started an Instagram, so we're trying to ramp that up a bit. I've brought on a head of communication, so she's going to be helping me out with that. So hopefully there's a lot better content out there, because I can only do so much, Jen.
Right.
Well,
right.
We'll definitely be in touch, and hopefully late next summer we'll have you on again, and we'll talk about the fall of 2025, and we'll definitely keep in touch and talk on social media. But by all means, WeatherWorks is a fan of the Foliage Report, that's for sure.
And I love WeatherWorks, and I think Jen needs a hat. What do you think, Brad?
Yeah, I think so too.
I think so too.
Exactly.
We'll wear it on next. We'll do a video podcast next year, and we'll all wear hats. How about that?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right.
I like it.
All right.
I like it. Thanks so much for joining us, Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle Cotner, everyone. Thanks again for joining us, and I think that'll wrap it up for today's episode. And of course, we've been talking about fall foliage. We'll be releasing our early predictions on the upcoming winter season very shortly. So be sure to subscribe to the Weather Lounge, and we'll notify you when that airs. And also follow us on all the big social media platforms. And of course, you can visit us at weatherworksinc.com. And again, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.
That's a wrap on this week's episode of the Weather Lounge podcast. Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on all your favorite podcasting platforms so you don't miss out on future episodes. Have questions or comments? Just email us at weatherlounge@weatherworksinc.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can also learn more about our parent company, WeatherWorks, by visiting weatherworksinc.com and checking them out on social media as well. Thanks again for joining us, and until next time, stay curious and stay weather-wise.